Welcome, everyone, to Uncaged Leaders. I'm Mariquita Solis, the Uncaged Heart Coach and the founder of The Last First Date. And I have my co founder here, Linda Tilson. We are doing this together. The Last First Date is a premier relationship education and consulting company dedicated to helping people build deeply meaningful, emotionally healthy partnerships. Linda's work is grounded in a beautiful, simple truth. Lasting relationships are not built through performative games. They're built through honesty, reciprocity, emotional responsibility, and genuine human connection. So today we are going to be talking about healing the trust gap, how old wounds create barriers to modern connection. So thanks for joining me, Linda. This is a very important show because our wounds can get in the way of the very thing we're trying to create, and we can be totally blind to it.
You're right. And without trust, you can't build a connection. And there is no connection, you have no relationship.
You're right. Connection is everything. You can have a surface level relationship that's who knows how long that will last. I don't want to find out, but yeah, that's why we're here today. You're right. So the relationship will not last. So we were talking, and I know that men have, not just men, but this show is specifically for men. So that's what we're going to be talking about, really focused on today. The trust issues. What do you hear from men, Linda?
Yes. Well, the trust that they have is definitely not there because they believe that women operate using a scorecard. So they believe that a woman will not speak to him unless he is the height, weight, career orientation that they're looking for. The money's coming in. He can provide with a house and all of those things, those superficial things. And they honestly think that if they don't meet those things, that no one's going to talk to them. And I call them out on that. And the reason why I do is because I am a woman. Yes, I've been married for over 30 years. However, those weren't the things that I was looking for. And they say, "Well, Linda, you're not the prototype. You're not in the modern world of society, dating right now. You have no idea." And I'm like, "Oh, yes, I do, because I have friends that are dating. I have uh younger children that are going to be entering this phase, and in some ways they're in the middle of it. They may not be in their mid 30s yet, but they are embarking on this. I'm sitting here thinking, gosh, if you don't have trust that someone wouldn't come to you other than what you can provide, that's really bad. I mean, I wouldn't want that either. I mean, do you really want to be valued for what you can give people? And if you don't have anything, then you have nothing to offer. I'm sitting here thinking that is very shallow. And and they want to meet people. I'm sitting there thinking, okay, well, if you have that value of that's what how women are, then how are you any different as a man? Then I mean, you and I could come up with a list of complaints that women share with us. So really, I just say, you know what you value. Be in the places and spaces where the women hold those values, and then be that person that steps forward to demonstrate what the values are, and see if she can meet you there. And then you will know. You just be discerning, and maybe not every woman is going to be right for him. And yes, there's those women that do want the man that will provide and have the looks that we were describing, the height, the weight, the all of that. Yes, there are people that are superficial, but there's also very nice, genuine, kind women who are driven, who are intelligent, know what they want, and they want someone to have a partnership with. So that's what you're looking for, is a partnership.
Yeah, and what I hear is these men that are, and you as a coach for men, the men that you're working with recognize these values in you and that they're able to discern Linda is the type of woman that has those core values that we're looking for. But then in a way, they're afraid to trust women to and to let go of the ones that don't share the core values that you have, and or even to trust themselves that they can recognize a woman like you. And a lot of times that is because we are in such a hurry to build to have a relationship and to just cement it, that we are not when we're going at a faster pace. Like when men meet me and you, for example, we're two women, right? We're and people say to me, well, you're different than other women too. They'll say you're deep, right? Yes, but isn't that what you're looking for? You might say I'm deep, and you might say Linda's different, but ultimately you are able to recognize what you're looking for. So what's the problem here? If you're able to recognize it in us, then
Yes.
there's something's not right. It's not something's not, connecting.
Yes, and so the word that people use for me is I'm attentive. You show up in front of me, I give you my attention, I'm listening, I'm not out judging, I'm listening to what you have to say, I consider any and all, and then you see where I come in on any discussion on any topic, I guess you could say. And you're right, these men do recognize those values that I hold, and they say that I'm like the small percentage. And I'm thinking, well, yes, that's true. The more quality you want, the less and the less there are of it, and it's more valued. And so I'm thinking, if you can find me as a coach to work with me, establish safety and trust in a safe space place to be who you are, then take that same skill set and apply it to other women. And so go in. Yes, you're not going to be looking for a coach or a guide when you're looking for a woman to date, but the principles are very much the same when you're being discerning, the way that you go about meeting these individual women. And so that's what I speak to. And it's like, okay, you want all these things, and yes, it's harder to find, but are you willing to open up, be courageous, and take that risk? And the men will also say, you know what, there's more on the stake. When I go out and I ask a woman on a date, there's that whole, I could be rejected. She may not even want to talk to me, and to walk away after talking to her and have everyone watch that. That's like the painful walk of shame. And that starts at a younger age and continues on. And so I'm sitting here thinking, okay, true, that is true. When you are courageous and you take bold actions and you put yourself out there, yes, you open yourself up to that risk of being rejected. But the opposite, if you don't risk opening up and taking that risk, then you're going to miss out. You're going to live a life of regret. I would rather take that step or that action and be rejected, or maybe not have what I wanted to have happen, than to not taking it all and always wondered. And so that's what I encourage in my coaching conversations. It's like, what little things can you do to build that muscle, that you're going to be courageous and you're going to take an action. So you start with small, low risk things that can give you big benefits. And so we practice with simple things.
Oh, that's a wonderful path with the small things, and knowing that we all are going to be rejected, and it's
Yes.
better be rejected than be stuck in a relationship for decades suffering. So we want to be rejected by the people that are not in alignment with our values, right? We want that. We welcome that. If I'm not skinny enough, or if he's not tall enough, please reject us because, right? I don't want to be chosen by my imperfections. I want to be chosen by my soul. And if people are trusting you, Linda, how did they come, men specifically, how did they come to trust you? It wasn't overnight. And that same process of trusting you is how they can go into their relationships slowly, right? They didn't just meet you and say, okay, I trust you, Linda. No.
Well, no, no, it took a little while. And, I push back and I'll say, you go into a relationship and you treat a woman the way that you treat me, with respect, integrity of my time, my space, energy, the things that I share. And you're kind, and you do the normal things that, holding open doors and making sure a person's safe. So as a man, if you can create the safety, that's number one. You start creating safety and a presence that when you come in that room, you're adding. You're not coming in to create and shove over problems, but you're coming in with a positive way of being, and have some things going for yourself. So be that individual person, because you're not coming in as a half, you're coming in as a whole. And try that for a while. And you, and they're like, well, the end game is different. And I said, is it really different? And I said, yes, you're not coming in uh as my as a friend to date me. That's true, but the rules of engagement apply the same in friendships. And you think about friendships, right? So when you're a child, you're younger, you make friends, you have proximity, you're in school, you have a routine, you go there every day, you see the people there, and you can build the friendships. And as adults, we move away from the proximity. So you might take various paths to employment, career, to where you live, to who you choose to hang out with, all of these different things. And what makes it harder, and this is what the thing is when you are used to making friendships and building relationships in a container where people are already with you in front of you, and you can just talk to them. It's so much easier, because as an adult, what changes is proximity changes, and people's capacity to give their time and energy and their purpose to you, because everyone's in different places and spaces. And so that's where the real challenge is, because they're like, well, where can I meet someone? I said, well, what do you like to do? What interests do you have? And I will tell you, one gentleman that I was coaching, he ended up finding conversations happening in the library. So people would come in to learn about certain things. They would sit at tables, read books. They would, sometimes they'd have things out, activities, and so they could have a conversation. There were people that were interested in learning about something outside of themselves, made a great conversation starter. And that was the little way of having conversations, low risk, because not every woman you approach, you're going to hand her your phone number, right? You're going to have to see, if she's interested in. And I say, this is the one that gets under my skin. It's like, each woman you meet, please don't have the very first question be, are you dating anyone? Are you single? It drives me bananas, because if someone's doing that, they're giving off, they only want to talk to me if I have this status. Now, that could be true, right? However, it's a stronger way to come in, to act curious and open and interested in me as a person in general. And then if I am available and I am interested, you're going to know, because I'm going to, especially if you talk about what I do for fun and my interest, I might say, well, I love to go camping with my husband. Well, then you're going to know, and so that changes the stage there. That's one thing that speaking to men comes up, but then me being a woman, that's how I feel about it. I mean, just talk to me like a person, and my status will come out eventually.
Well, that's very true. If the person, if the woman wants to get to know you, she will let you know. You're not going to have to guess about it. She will say, well, I like to go hiking, but I usually don't have anyone to hike with. Something like that. You'll hear it. She'll let you know. There won't have to be any guessing games, right?
No, there
So
really doesn't. You have to be listening for the cues. And and so going about it, I would say what works is going about it as you want to have a friend, a new friend. Because if you can have a new friend where you have some shared interests, you could have some attraction, of course, because that's where you're headed. But go for the friendship first, and establish the safety and trust, and just genuinely wanting to be with another person. And people want to rush things. You're right. They want to go from A to Z in the first date. And I say, a quality woman is not going to sleep with you on the first date, usually. I mean, it could happen, and it does happen, I suppose. But really, she's going to want to get to know you as a person, and how you behave over time, and things about you, and you can't learn something in a couple hours. I mean, they say friendships that it takes several hundred hours to get to have an intimate friendship. So there you go. So yes, you don't you don't go the fast pace like that.
Right, and that's what we're talking about in our other series. We have Linda and I have a series where you're shopping in your relationships, and so it's like if I was going to plant a garden, would I just grab my seeds and just throw them out there in the ground without thinking about it, or would I make sure to have an environment, really thought out, intentional environment for the seeds, water them? No, I mean, so it's all about intentionality, right? And cultivating, right? We know that it's the plant is not going to grow in a day, just like our relationships. We don't want to rush anything. Those are slow, the more slow moving, we want to give the stalk enough water and enough light so it's not some spindly thing that collapses, right? We want to get to know people. This and the friendship first is so crucial. Friendship without any pressure to cement anything. Just let things happen because I've experienced this where I've been in relationships with men that were friends, and all of a sudden there was a shift to romance. I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is like Prince Charming. Like, what in the world? How could it be friendship where I didn't even think about him like that yesterday? And the next day it's like, whoa. So that shift was building that foundation, right? And that is also building the trust that many of us are that we hesitate to lean into. And the reason we have issues with trust is because of the rushing. So many men will say, I want a meaningful relationship, but I don't know if I trust women enough to fully invest. Okay. So if you're saying you don't know if you trust women, okay, you don't have to trust all women. You have to trust the woman that you are communicating with, that you're building the relationship. You don't have to trust everyone, but you do have to be intentional about this woman that you are sharing time with and listening and letting go of the physical rush to get into things. And as many women, I would say, I don't know, maybe this isn't true, but they will use the physical to try to cement that relationship with a man, right? So, as a man, be aware of that. And I've done that too. I'm no saint here. Let me just tell you, right? I was like, if I could just cement the physical, but that doesn't work. And that's why we have trust issues if we're rushing into things. So, again, take your time to know the woman and you will be able to feel safer about fully investing with her.
Yes, that's what I call the slow burn. So you gradually, incrementally go up in things that you share and do in your relationship. And when you're not in a hurry, and you said something great here, when you said when you were in the friend zone and you were getting to know gentlemen, and then all of a sudden you realize there was an interest, you're like, okay, that came out of nowhere. Okay, I observed that, but oh wow, they bring it. And so in a friendship, that type of relationship, you do build trust over time by the time you spend together. And yes, when you start to form um, the emotional connection, because for women usually there's emotional connection and then the physical connection follows. Men are more tactical, or not tactical, are more, they're more into the physical and the touch and all of that. And then as things progress through that, then they may have the emotional bond. So women and men, I think, are wired a little different. Now, that's not to say that all men and women are wired in that way, but typically, I mean, I could relate to if I'm emotionally attracted to someone, the other things will follow. And lack of that, probably not, because I don't feel the connection until that happens. Mhm.
Right. Yeah, and that's all of this is about awareness and taking things slowly, like you're saying, and in the slow burn. So also looking at past relationships, and if you're feeling bitter or angry, if you haven't gotten past that, right? And it this anger and bitterness, what's underlying that is often pain, right? Being the hurt, the heartbreak, the betrayal, and experiences.
Disappointment.
Yes, disappointment. And what do people learn when that happens? Yeah, they learn to question vulnerability.
Yeah, and when you have that disappointment, anger, betrayal, all these different negative feelings, don't think that you don't bring that into your future introductions of people. You may think that you don't, that you can put on the face and that you can have the conversations and it's not there. And it's like, oh yes, you can tell when someone's frustrated and hurt and feeling like they aren't deserving of this relationship because it'll come out even in the words they use and how they treat themselves and self-talk. It comes out, and you spend enough time with somebody, you get to learn, where people's blind spots are. And so they come out if you're paying the other person's attentive and paying attention. You're going to see little things. And so, your energy precedes you before you even step into a room and or into a space. And so, I recommend that men, yes, feel all those things because the feelings are valid. However, if you can think of a way to step into the space with a different lens and way of being and try your best to think of at least one thing or two things about this introduction or this date that you could be happy and excited about and bring that energy, because the misogynist man, oh my gosh, that will repel most women away when that comes up. And that's somebody who says all of these things that you can tell that all those things are happening and it plays out and all women do this and all women want this and that. And so you're going to go meet women with that attitude, you're going to lose before you even start. So it's like, think of a few things that you bring that you're proud of and can do, and see how that doesn't change, because we don't, as people, we're looking for people to connect with, and we don't connect with bitterness normally. you know and I'm gonna say this because I think we need to share it. We didn't go there yet, but you know people only can relate as far as they're developed, and they only can relate to the past experiences that they've had. So if they or have lived in a home where there wasn't the warmth, or there was abuse, or there was just not like communicating, all these different skills that we learn from the time we're born, enter the educational system and move to careers and whatnot. If we're in a space where things weren't exactly ideal and we didn't live that good experience, that's the only thing that we know. So until we learn better through education and awareness, we're not going to get to that place where we can move healthily through. That's why we have coaches and therapists and all the different helpers of the world, because you know you can't fix what you don't see, and some of these mannerisms or thought patterns or things, you may not be as aware of them as other people around you are. And if you're courageous enough to say, I need to work on XYZ, and you can do that when you are meeting other people, as long as you take care of those needs and and don't like expect the other person to like mold you and fix you and repair you and do all that, because that's a lot to put on another person, and you have to ask another person if they sign up for that, and yet that's usually a professional. So those are just some thoughts as we're talking.
Yeah, that's very true. And yes, people do have wounds, and to be able, if we all have wounds, and if they're really hurting you with these patterns in relationships, to get help, definitely. We all have them. And so I hear of a lot of men saying, I'm not opening up because I was laughed at by the last person. She said she wanted me to open up, and when I did, she shamed me. And so that's another thing that men have to realize, not just men, but all of us. So when we date someone new, we're not dating the person that shamed us. So we don't want to carry that into this new relationship. And we can get caught in that old trap of fear and not trusting that and just put that old persona on the new relationship. And so it's really about awareness, what we're bringing into it. And how did we heal our wounds from that past relationship to move to the fact where we can believe that vulnerability is safe. And if you are in a relationship with someone and they're shaming you for being vulnerable, well, then again, that has nothing to do with you. That has to do with them, what they think about it. And I mean, I just say, and this is easy for me to say, be thankful that they're showing you who they really are. But it's very true. Be thankful, because we don't want to be with people that shame us for showing our hearts. So it hurts. It hurts terribly to be shamed for being vulnerable. But we need to find the people that are safe. And that is, again, why we're saying go slow, friendship first.
Be discerning. You see something that doesn't set well with you, ask yourself, how do I feel when I'm with this person and they do said thing? Does that make me feel anxious, uncomfortable? Does it repel me? Think about asking yourself that and pay attention to what's going on in your body, because usually anxiety and feeling of ick or feeling of just like frustration, those emotions are there for a reason, and they felt in your body long before they come to your logical brain, as we were speaking to on another live. And so really, um the thing that to be careful of too is knowing what areas you need to work on is good, but just remember this other thing. If you, just like you can like feel pain and hurt and all those things, well, in order to feel love, the other side of that, the lighter side, you have to have felt the dark. So I say you have to feel the dark to understand what that is and what that feels like, to be able to feel the light. And if you operate in, I'm never going to open up because this last time this person did this thing to me and I didn't like that and whatever, and you didn't speak to it, that's your cue, your opportunity. Like when something happened that's not right and that makes you feel awkward, shameful, bad, angry, all those, speak to it. I don't care whether you're a man or a woman. If someone does something and it hurts you, please say, when you do said thing, this hurts me. And you may not have intended that, but it does. And I'm sharing this with you now. If you want to love me, then doing this thing over and over again, that hurts me. And I can't stay with you if you're going to continue to hurt me when I share that with you. Having conversations like that, they're not easy. And you might have to say them more than once. But if the person doesn't change after these things, then they're not your person. They're not willing to, I mean, do you want to be with someone that knowingly hurts you and doesn't make any change? They don't care about you enough to do that. You're right. You don't want that. And nor should you tolerate that. So knowing what you will and will not tolerate, and knowing where you have some things where you may not love exactly whatever is going on, but it's not the deal breaker. So that is a whole nother conversation.
Yeah, and what you're talking about is what we talked about earlier today on another stream, which was the self-leadership. Take control of what's happening. And I don't mean in a overly aggressive way, but stand up for yourself and say and be honest. And the way that you spoke, Linda, was it was very clear. You were saying, this is hurting me. You weren't blaming. You were saying, I want you to know that this is hurting me, and I'm not going to be able to continue on if it doesn't stop, because that is self-leadership. You're speaking for yourself, right? And what do you lose if someone doesn't listen? What have you lost? You're going to be back in that same loop of someone shaming you. And it it's sometimes you might feel like it's better to have somebody than no one, but to be shamed and to be treated with disrespect is not an answer to being alone. There are people out there that are deserving of love and that do know how to speak respectfully and to handle conflicts. Now, there not might not be many of them, but where you're not, you would deserve the diamond, right? You don't deserve just anyone. Think about it. You're looking for the special person that shines, that has honor, that will respect you. So you
And
deserve,
build with you.
right,
Will build with you.
grow.
And you know, that conversation where I was sharing all of that, it does feel uncomfortable doing it. I mean, and it's scary because you don't know how the other person's going to respond. But you know what? Sometimes the person on the other side of it doesn't have an awareness that they were doing that thing that makes you feel that way. And wouldn't you owe it to your partner just to share it with them rather than not doing that? That to like speaking to it as kindness, ignoring it or not saying anything, well then you're not giving them an opportunity to show up differently. So I like to look at these conversations as an opportunity to provide awareness and an opportunity for someone to choose or not to choose to change. And there's another little piece to this. When you're having this conversation and you let the person know that the thing is hurtful, I recommend or advocate asking that person, thank you for telling me this. And it wasn't my intention, but I hurt you anyway. In the process of doing this thing, I'm going to do my best to work through it and not do it. But if I move in that direction or misstep, will you kindly share it with me? Will you tell me so that I can try? Because I don't want to hurt you. And I think that is like one of the kindest thing that can ever happen, because a lot of times people aren't purposely trying to disrespect anybody. It's just something that could happen that they're not as in tune with, especially when we, you know, get tired, have life's frustrations, stress on our body, mentally and physically in some cases. It's hard to show up correctly, and nobody shows up correctly. I screw up and do things, and I have to say I'm sorry. I'm going to do better now that I know better. And if I'm not doing that, why would someone want to build with me if I'm not willing to take some criticism, constructive criticism, and change?
Yeah, everything you're saying is so true. And these are opportunities to build connection because each of one of these little conflicts, after it's resolved, you become closer, you trust more. So think of these things as they're twofold, right? They might be friction, but life's going to be filled with friction, but they will build trust. If you can get through that little mountain, right? You've done it together. You're a team. You're working together to get through these little mountains of life. And there's no way you're not going to have friction or any kind of disruption with anyone. We're not the same human beings. We're all different. So in life is not just a smooth ride all the time.
No, and we evolve as people. Who we were when we were 20 is not the same as when we're 50.
Yeah, and that's very important too in choosing a partner, right? You have to have these conversations about growth, acknowledging where what is that part of, is this part of your life growing, the growing awareness? I do know people that I think haven't really grown much since they were 20 years old, and that's why I'm not with them anymore, which is interesting. So and that this all comes back to trusting. When we know who we're with, we trust ourselves to pick a partner that grows with us, that respects us, that is on a in a symbiotic relationship. We can trust. If we just grab someone that's good looking or 6 foot tall or skinny and beautiful, it there's no guarantees there.
Which is why if you want the long lasting relationship, you got to put in the work, and it begins with yourself. And then you get courageous. You meet different people in different walks and stages of life, and you get to ask them questions of curiosity, get to experience things with them. And that's how we decide who we ultimately will be with, and you can't get there quickly. I mean, yes, you could meet someone and have a really strong connection right away. I'm not going to say that doesn't happen, but typically the things that we talked about was the building trust and um, sharing yourself with another person in a way they actually can see the good and the bad and still want to stay. And and so people need to see all sides of us, because who it's really easy to be with someone when things are going really well, but the moment that there's some kind of existential crisis or something that you got to move through, not everyone moves through stress in I guess what I call a productive way. So a way that you feel whatever is stressful, but then you find a way to navigate through it. Not everyone can do that either. And so when you want to know what you're getting into, I mean, some of the questions to ask somebody, a potential partner, is when you get stressed, what do you do? And that, I mean, that right there will open up compatibility, because if you're a person that wants to sit and talk with a person and deal with it in the moment, and they just want to run away and think about it for 4 days, that unless you know how to work with that, that might be a challenge.
Right. And that would really hurt trust as well because you're not understanding, right? Having these conversations. So I did have conversations with past partners who did talk about that and how to resolve conflicts, like when there was reparation, what they needed. I was told I need physical affection, right? Not just an apology, but that also, I need this. So when things do get rough, we have to be prepared, right? We have to, when we can find out beforehand if we do have a conflict, what's the best way to address it? If I'm having an issue, what's the safest way? Tell me now so I will do what's the safest for you. And we can build that trust when we already have these conversations in the beginning. And what's also is important is to self-reflect when we're getting triggered. Am I getting stop and am I getting triggered because this is something someone did in my life before me? Is this something that my mother did and now I'm seeing my partner? I think I'm seeing the same thing in my partner, but really it's a past wound, right? And then we're thinking, I can't trust her because she's like my mother, but it's really something that isn't the same thing. And this takes awareness again. And this is all about trust. And then you have the conversation. You can say, I'm feeling triggered. If you're aware, this kind of reminded me of something my mother did. And have that conversation about it. If you have a loving partner, my response would be, please tell me. I'm here to support you. How can I support you? Because I love you. And I think when we have these conversations, starting with, I love you, and I want to have this conversation because I care about our relationship, then it really is a good starting point. Now, do have I always done that? No. Can I always do it? I don't know. But it's when stop and think and practice it. Practice, practice, practice.
Yes, the practice is important. And I think as human beings, we get lots of opportunities to practice. And we know we're not always going to get it right. And the more you can learn how to, um, when conflict arises, to be able to say exactly what you had. I love you and I want to fix this. I care enough about you to want to do this. I mean, that opens safety gate right there. And if you get back and I really hate it when you do blah, blah, blah. And then you're like, take a deep breath. Because the moment you start throwing things back and forth, you get pulled back into that. And it takes a lot of patience to be calm. And sometimes the best time to have these conversations is not in the heat of the whatever, to wait until it's a time that's more calm, or you can talk about something that happened that was triggering, and not be in that triggering moment. So timing matters a lot when you're dealing with conflict. And really what we're advocating for is repair. If a person's willing to repair, then anything that's going on can be addressed with repair, with agreements of how it can be different, and come to the middle ground of how can we work on this, because it's really frustrating when we have this argument every month. Same thing over and over, and we're not getting any progress. So then, like, okay, you're right, we're not making progress. Okay, what haven't we tried yet? So it's just being open to trying different things, and just knowing that there's different styles too. Like, some people need several days of processing, whereas other people want to take care of it right away and face it head on. So just knowing that there's going to be differences and allowing the differences to happen in a way that's constructive.
Yes. And knowing that will solve a lot of problems, and knowing what makes people feel safe, right? If you say to your partner, I need to take a day or two to myself, right? That way you're communicating why you're stepping away, and your partner will, that's going to create a feeling of safety, as if you just say, okay, can't deal with you, gotta go, right? That's scary. So letting people know what you need in advance, and maybe you don't know, or maybe you even saying, I don't know what I need right now, so I'm going to take some time. I don't want you to be afraid. I love you and I want to work this out right now. I need time to think about how I can speak to this in a more productive manner.
So all of these things that we're talking about today, Mariquita and I, if you go back to how you treat your friends and apply it to your relationships, it's interesting how that can change, because we don't go around hurting our friends and not listening to them and stonewalling them and all these other things. We actually try pretty hard, and when we hurt them, like, oh my gosh, I didn't mean to hurt you, I feel so terrible, I feel so bad. And then you start working on it. If you can remember that the same rules of engagement apply in romantic and partnerships, relationships, and they just do. And how you treat your best friend, and like, how would I treat my best friend if this happened? If nothing else, say that to yourself when you get into these situations. How would I help my best friend if they came to me for this? Or how would I want to treat my best friend? And go with that. And if nothing else, uh, just frame it in a way that you can get on board with doing something, and not getting discouraged and throwing up your hands. And if you need to have a third party person that's a professional help you with these conversations, I say do it, because when you can figure out how to have these conversations, you get to practice them with a person when they're not the actual person in this situation. They're a little bit easier to role play and figure out. And I just remember one time I was asked to play the person that I was having the difficulty with. I had to play that character. That opens up a lot.
Yeah.
When you do that, when you pretend you're the other person, I'm like, oh, I did not have that awareness. Oh, I have this new awareness, and it's magical when these things can happen. So sometimes it's just taking a step back, looking at other perspectives, asking for help to have conversations with someone that you do trust, and then doing that. I would find that 99% of the time you can talk to anyone about anything and make some progress. And so not having the conversation, it's way worse, and it never goes down the way that you think it's going to go down. People put a lot of assumptions in their head, just kind of like when we started this whole conversation. Men put a lot of assumptions that women only want certain things or they're not interested. That's an assumptions. Validate. If you think that that's true, then validate, is it true?
Yeah, that's very, yes, definitely. And even talking about that, I mean, as adults, we should be able to talk about anything, right? Yeah, and I mean, society wants men not to talk about emotions, to stay strong, and even society encourages us to make lists about how horrible the person was, and that stops processing. I'll say, yes, if someone broke up with me and I was heartbroken, I could make a list and demonize them, but really I think it's better to reflect on the relationship and not demonize someone just so I can get over my heartbreak. Yes, we're going to feel pain if someone breaks up with us, but to look back and see it. They're two people in a relationship. What didn't work? What wasn't working, right? I mean, yes, sometimes people can be very hateful, and that's reality. But if you're staying in a relationship that's hateful, again, you have the self leadership. That's the self leadership to stand up for yourself, to be an advocate for yourself and say, no, I'm not going to stay in this relationship. So there's always more to reflect on than a list of hatefulness against a prior partner.
And there's that self accountability. So the better question to ask is, what role do I play in this? Because there are two players in this, there are two people, and so each person plays a role. And so if you are triggering another person, you played a role. If you chose not to repair, you played a role. You sabotage things, you played a role. So it's not always about the other person doing wrongdoing. It's what did you do that might have influenced the way that they felt or behaved as a result of something you did or did not do. Taking a look at that and changing yourself is much easier than the trying to change another person. You're not going to change another person.
No, and until we are able to heal from the relationships the past relationships, we're not going to be able to trust the next one.
And you'll repeat the same behaviors that got you into over and over again. So they say that you repeat the missteps until you learn. That is true. You'll do it over and over with each and every person, each and every relationship until you figure it out. And wouldn't you rather do the work and figure out what your role was and what happened and ask some questions about how you vision your role? And you could ask your partner, when I did XYZ, did you see that I was being XYZ? And they're like, yeah, you were kind of like uh being irritating because you'd always want to talk to me when I was in the middle of doing something. You never asked me if I was ready and open to be receptive to the discussion. And so, is that a fun conversation to have? Not necessarily, but you might learn something.
Right. And we're talking about adult conversations here. And remembering that we don't want every new person we're dating to be unconsciously being measured against an old wound, right? Because then we're going to be defensive. We're going to be afraid. We got to protect ourselves, right? This new person is going to be just a woman trying to take advantage of us, right? How many times have I heard that?
Oh,
And
probably daily. And when you're in that hyper vigilant mode, you're just scanning and looking for every misstep. You know that you're going to find the missteps, and it's exhausting to be doing that. Like, why can't you like look at it from the good things that are coming together? And oh, another thing that came to mind, because lots of things come to mind as we're talking, but when somebody tries to repair, they take the steps and then they do it. Acknowledge that person for taking the steps to repair. That would be like the one thing that I would say out of this conversation, to take with you, is when you get into repair, because you're always going to be there at some point in time. Acknowledge the person for making the effort and see what that doesn't do to your relationship.
exactly. Yes, yes, yes. There's no relationships that aren't going to need repair. So thank them for it. Thank you for, having the courage to work with me in this relationship. Thank you for holding a safe space for me when I need it. Thank them for the quiet gift of being your partner. So, and again, like Linda's saying, don't be hunting for all the things that are really wounds of the past. That's the
Mhm.
awareness. And that's why, again, we say go slow, because the slower you go, the less likely you're going to fall into these traps.
That's
Because,
right. You're less likely to fall in these traps, repeat past behaviors, and sabotage everything that's good that's happening. And because that's why people get frustrated about dating and relationships, because they're focusing on all the things that didn't go well rather than looking at the things in those previous relationships that went well. You find out what well, and you go repeat that. You repeat those behaviors, you have a different experience, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I had this wonderful relationship, and these are all the things that went well. I found this person that embodies these things, and we talk and we repair and we do all these things together. And boy, that feels so much different. Oh gosh, I don't ever want to be where I was in my previous relationships. And the funny thing is, once you have that good experience, that good relationship, that's your picture of what you want to have happen, and you won't even entertain any of the other things anymore. You know, if so an example I like to use, we talked about the fireworks, so the intensity, the fireworks, all of that going on. Well, when you get the nice slow burn and you get to know a person, all these great things happen, and it feels really good, you won't be pulled into this chemistry making nonsense and just go for that. Now, do you want chemistry? Of course you do. You want attraction and chemistry, but you don't want to lead with that. You want to lead with the other, which is to have, know what you want, express your values, find out from the other person what they value, and build. You build on that. When you choose to build, then you're not doing fixing up projects, because nobody needs
oh,
those.
no, that's exhausting. You said that, and I felt, whoa. Anyway,
Sure you
yeah,
did, because we have all been in situations where something might have been more of a project, an emotional drain, a lift to get things moving. And you shouldn't I mean, there's effort required in all relationships, but it shouldn't feel like it takes all of your energy and it drains you and it's exhausting. If you're doing that, you're over functioning, and you're trying to carry something that's not yours to carry.
right. Yeah, you hit on so many points, and I think once you do, I don't think, once you have that different sort of relationship that's not based on the physical, that sets a new baseline for you. You can never go back to that superficial kind of just this fast-paced chemistry, because you're always going to crave, you know what it is now, to have that soul connection that's on the slow burn, that those other things are just not going to satisfy you anymore. And
No,
the only way that you're going to be able to get there is to open up with vulnerability and to actually trust. You have to trust to get there. There's no way to put up walls and think that you're going to build something with someone that's going to have a strong foundation. Walls don't do it.
no, they don't. The moment you let down the walls and you let people in, that's when you can appreciate the person in front of you and get to know them and discover together. And that's where you want to be. And it may not be, um, I guess what I would call like the exciting sparks all the time. But you know what? I'd rather have consistent, slow, knowing there's safety involved and that there's stability. That does a number for your nervous system. And when you have that, you don't want all the chaos and nonsense. You just don't. And we all can be adrenaline junkies when we want to, but do we want to exist day by day like that? No, because that's just a spike in energy that's draining in the end. And so, consistent and safety and stability and trust, all of that is so much more fulfilling in something that you're building for the long haul.
Well, that's what we're talking about now. Not everybody wants the long haul, but we are talking about the long haul. We don't want you to go through decades and decades of this same, repeating these same cycles. And then more walls go up, more distress goes up. And now you've got this massive wall that you built through years because you haven't looked at what's happening, like Linda's saying. Look at the good. What did you learn from that relationship? What could have been done differently? What can you take responsibility for? And how can you commit to trusting a little more each day? And just when you have a new partner, trust. It's when I meet a new partner, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I don't want to say I'm not going to trust you. I give them the trust until they show me otherwise.
And, just real quickly here as we're wrapping up, one of the things that you can do is you can have low bar things that you can use to extend trust. And if they can meet you in the trust area, then that's an earned pebble of trust. And then you give them something else that you could trust them with. And so, one thing could be you maybe talk to them about something sensitive and they keep it to themselves. They don't tell everyone else. Well, then that's a trust that you can have a conversation and it doesn't go somewhere. So then the next time you're like making a major decision about something in your life and you walk through what the pros and cons are to making the decision and you get their feedback and whatnot. And, how does that play out? Do they tell you what to do and try to control the outcome, or they give you autonomy to trust yourself and make a decision and then they support you with it, for example?
Yeah, this is all a process,
It
y'all.
is
So
very
don't
much a
feel
process.
overwhelmed. Just take it slow, and you won't, and you will avoid the overwhelm. So yeah, and a as we are ending our conversation, please let us know what you think if you want to see any episodes about this. But I also want to remind you that Linda and I have co-founded this new business for intentional connections, slow burning connections, right? No rushing, evaluating, looking at yourself with kindness and gentleness. So everyone is ready for an intentional relationship based on a foundation of strength. So we want to invite you to check out our website and complete your contact information, and then you will be directed to our complimentary self-leadership and love assessment. And that will help you get clarity on your journey to true unforced intimacy. And that is at www.the-last-first-date.com. So there it is. Go get that assessment and you'll be directed. That all that will you'll get the assessment and you'll get some clarity on where you need to work with gentleness on yourself in relationships, getting ready. So this has been a powerful conversation, Linda. There have been so many good points, and we just it's a nice collaboration. So
Yes,
thank you.
we're embodying what we're speaking to is to build the relationship, is to have these conversations where we're learning and growing together. And that begins with us. And thank you for sharing that we have the assessment out on our website. We would love the opportunity to have a conversation with you about our master class, to have a conversation about our one-on-one coaching and consulting. And so, again, if that interests you, do make sure you fill out that contact form and we'll be in touch with you. We'd love to have that conversation.
Yep, that sounds great, y'all. So reach out to us and thanks for watching. And always know how you deserve the best and don't settle for less. We're standing with you. All right, y'all. See you next week and thanks for watching.